Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show trying to make the world safer for ADHDers. I'm a clinical neuropsychologist, and I am the father of two ADHD kids, and I'm married into a whole family of ADHDers. And frankly, this was back in the days when ADHD wasn't even a diagnosis. It didn't exist in those days. All I knew is that these were very lively, interesting people to be around. So that's my claim. And we are in this second, I guess technically it's the third show, talking about vocations that are workout for ADHDers. And last week we talked about entrepreneurship because I had just come back from a conference of podcasters, and they're all, not all, but 70, probably maybe even 80% are ADHDers. Some diagnosed, some not. But you can kind of see, okay, hey, entrepreneur, you're your own boss. You make all the decisions yourself. You don't have to put up with a boss telling you you're wrong or any of that stuff. And that really appeals to a lot of ADHD people. But this week we're going to kind of go the opposite way. And this is vocations that are pretty rigidly structured. Somebody or something will tell you almost instantly if you got it wrong or if you're not keeping up or that sort of thing. And some of these surprised me when I first started working with ADHD folks. I remember I was talking to one guy, and I said, okay, so, he told me all his problems with the paying attention and executive function and all that other stuff. And I said, so what kind of work do you do? Oh, I'm an accountant. And I kind of, accountant? That, I was not very polished at that time and on the ADHD and how many different ways it can look. But this surprised me. And, I've just always loved it as so, so neat and orderly and da 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 da. I could sort of understand, now that I've got a few more years of experience on me, that um, accounting doesn't have somebody standing over you cracking the whip necessarily, but if you're not getting the right answers, you'll know it pretty much instantly, and that kind of keeps you on your toes. And I think that's my read on how that works for ADHD people. It's got to be something you're interested in, and sometimes it's because it's innately interesting to you, and sometimes it's a combination of that plus it'll kick you in the shins if you're not paying attention. And that's what I see with accounting. I remember when I was in college, I had a fraternity brother who was an accounting major, and apparently he was good at it, but he had zero social skills. As I think back on it now, I'm sure he was on the spectrum, that is autistic spectrum disorder. And I'm not going to give any more information about him because I certainly don't have any permission to even talk about him. But he apparently was a whiz at accounting, doing corporate kinds of things, and yet he he was a little on the different side. He was, like I said, I believe he was on the spectrum, and but that was my first kind of. So it's not all about the freedom. It's not all about being creative. It's about something holding your feet to the fire. And I know from my own personal experience, I'm a retired Air Force, and we had a lot of people in the military that were doing well in the military, but it was also very likely uh, that they had ADHD. And the trick with the military is even if you're not in a real special area, you are getting almost constant feedback on your job performance. If you're fixing a jet engine, you don't get to fall asleep, or just kind of drift off and start, doing other things. You have to be on the ball. And if you're not, there's going to be somebody with more stripes than you've got, on his sleeve or her sleeve, who's going to wake you up real fast. And a lot of times, the jobs are, well, in the Air Force anyway, they're all very technical jobs, most of them, um, especially if you have anything to do with aircraft maintenance. Those are some very demanding positions, and they take somebody who's maybe just barely made it through high school, and if you have the aptitude, and they're real big on aptitude tests in the military, but if you have aptitude for mechanical things, which a lot of the people who end up in the Air Force did have that, you'll be in hog heaven. You'll have this great job that's highly technical, that's very interesting, uh, and you will have a lot of supervision. You will have people who are, one of the things in the military or in the Air Force anyway is that the big deal is getting sorties out, having if flights are scheduled, they need to go. They can't be broken down in the hangar or something because somebody dropped a screw or lost focus or any of that sort of thing. So it's pretty intense, okay? But that intensity also comes with, wow, look at that thing. You watch your first well, when I was in the game, it was F-15s. You watch one of those bad boys take off right in front of you, and it's like, wow, look at that. That is so cool. Yeah, and so that carries over and keeps you focused, reminds you, and yet there's a payoff. I can fix jet engines. Uh, and so you get your little adrenaline rush, and that's one of the things we know. You have to like it, have to find it interesting, that sort of thing, and you have to feel good about it because that's where your dopamine reward comes in. So a lot of times, and there have been some trouble with ADHD in the military. The deal is, if they treat it like it's a what do I want to say, diabetes. They say, if you don't take your diabetes medication, you're going to get very sick. You're going to be a real, if you're deployed somewhere in some desert part of the world or someplace, you're going to be a real problem for everybody if you can't get your medication. ADHD is not like that. You can take your medication and you may be better, but if you don't take it, it's not going to kill anybody. You're not going to really screw up necessarily. Of course, all of those things are individual, and probably somebody should be evaluating all that kind of stuff. But that's was the reason I thought that so many people in the Air Force with ADHD were able to do well. Although at times the military has, or the Air Force anyway, has not allowed people to come in if they really needed medication. It just makes, when you have to deploy to some other place in the world, that just is an added burden for everybody who's trying to plan things. But basically, you've got a high level, a high standard. You've got it goes pretty fast. I mean, you have to be competent. You have to be able to run your checklists and that sort of thing, and get the job done in a reasonable time. And there's people monitoring all this. How come that It's been in the back of the hangar for, a day and a half now. It's supposed to have been fixed yesterday. So you're being tracked. It gets pretty intense. Um, I'm not sure what it's like now, but when I was in there, it was if you screwed up, you heard about it. You knew it almost immediately, with some intensity. But that was the way everybody played the game, so I don't think it was that big a deal. Okay, so military, accounting, they're kind of alike if you really push it a little bit, but accounting, you make a mistake, you may not find out about it right away, but you'll find out about it towards the end when you're looking at it and go, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. These don't go to, anyway. And then there's the military. Uh, and, you see a lot of younger folks in the military than you, and, these are pretty intense jobs, at least in the Air Force, they're pretty intense. And they are intense. So you've got to get it done. You got to do it right. And that really is one of those things that people, some people respond to it well, some people don't respond to it so well. With ADHD, I mean, one of the big things, and we didn't really know how to put that, but then I think Dr. Silber, I think it was, with rejection sensitive dysphoria. A lot of ADHDers do not take criticism well at all. And that's a big, huge issue, a huge negative in terms of being in the military. Uh, and that's one of those problems you're never really sure how people are going to respond. I mean, there are some people who are so sensitive to criticism that they really can't work for anybody else. And heaven forbid, and a lot of times you see this with ADHDers, they'll be smarter than the boss. Less disciplined, but a lot smarter than the boss. And that doesn't work well because they'll have this great idea for how things should be done and it's new and it makes more sense and they won't be able to stand it when the boss just ignores them and goes and does it the way he's always done it or she's always done it for the last 20 years. Yeah. Okay. And one other area that ADHDers typically do well in, but a lot of times there's a lot of detail work, and that's computers. There's a bunch of things about computers that you wonder why an ADHDer would be very good at it. But one of the things I noticed, and I get this with my wife all the time, because she's the computer whiz in the family. I am the guy who has to follow a checklist or something to get to strip the audio from this script later on. I need a checklist. I need to follow the rules. And when they change the position of the buttons I'm pushing, and I've been pushing them, and they were located somewhere else on the page, and then now all of a sudden they're up here, and where they used to be down here. But ADHDers do better with that. They are. I'm not sure. Actually, I should look that up because I haven't seen the research on it. But it appears to me that ADHDers are more likely to be visual thinkers, visual spatial people, and less likely to be linear, logical kinds of thinkers. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, okay, your brain has two halves. The left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. The left hemisphere is your language, your linear, logical language. That's most of what we train in school. And then the other thing is the right hemisphere is your visual spatial abilities, your ability to see patterns, to see connections between things that maybe aren't even on the same page. That's the right hemisphere. And I know in my family, all my ADHDers are highly visual thinkers. My wife can't tell me how to do some procedure on the computer that she has done for 10, 15 years, she has to see it. When she can see it, she can, oh yeah, you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And I'm like, you've been doing this for 20 years. You can't tell me that without. No, I don't say that. I've been married a long time. I know how to get along, but it's just it's really amazing. As I remember, we were trying to get me so I was talking before about stripping the audio off of video and audio uh, download, and we were. I swear we spent 3 hours doing that, and it was like I she was talking, and I didn't. What she was saying wasn't all of what she was doing, and I was getting lost and a little frustrated, and she was getting a little frustrated too. But ADHD folks seem to be able to talk to this computer um, very, very well. My youngest is also he does really well with computer stuff, although he's not sure he likes it that much. But anyway, so computers are another area where you should or could expect that a child of yours might really do well. And the uh, the big deal with that, the big downside of that is that those video games. That's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about being able to do work kind of stuff uh, using a computer, and that's different from playing games all the time. And I mean, the problem you have with that is that there's a tendency to get, frankly, addicted to computer games. And I know I've told this story before, but I had a doctor's kid, and he was a really bright guy, but all of a sudden, I forget exactly, I think it was his sophomore year in high school, he just started getting so addicted to computer games that that's all he wanted to do. And apparently, he had an uncle who was just still living in his mom's basement, doing nothing but playing video games. So he thought that was pretty cool. And he was clever enough to know that the hook to dad was to have a physical symptom. So he must have had the $50 million workup, just in the time I was seeing him. And they never found anything. He's always, oh God, I got this, that, or the other. And basically, they'd take him in for a test, and while they waited 2 or 3 days for the test to be read, and oh, no, nothing there. Well, maybe we ought to try this one, and when you have one solution to a problem, and sometimes that's not the right one. Anyway, so he did this, he lost a whole year of high school, basically, is what it amounts to. He was not ever in class for the whole year. I mean, it was not good anyway. And the thing you always got to watch out for. I mean, you can get addicted to almost anything. You can get addicted to peanut butter, but the costs of being addicted to peanut butter aren't quite as great as being so addicted to your screen that you ignore everything else in your life. And that's what pretty much all addiction causes problems. So your ADHD or computer's great. Computer solving problems with them, all the other sort of stuff, great. Dude, go for it. But understand that don't get so into the computer games that you don't do anything meaningful with your computer knowledge. And I'm not sure what is going to go on around here, around the world, really, with this AI stuff. I mean, I play with it myself. Sometimes I'm impressed with it. Sometimes not so much. And sometimes I read stuff and I go, oh God, that was so obviously written by AI and it's so bad. But anyway, that's so jobs that require a certain amount of structure, that have a certain amount of structure to them, that they have a certain amount of feedback that you get pretty regularly. That kind of thing grabs ADHDers, and they will tend to do okay, maybe very well, because they've still got the good parts of ADHD, like the creativity and the unique problem solving ways of handling things. But you're not as positive about that. It's going to be totally, well, everything with ADHD is pretty much individual situations. Sometimes there'll be people will be able to do this sort of thing, and sometimes most of them won't be able to do the same thing. So I wish there were that more rules, but there really aren't. But you can at least consider some of the things we've talked about today: immediate feedback, certain amount of intensity, certain amount of strictness, need for accuracy. All those sorts of things are important for ADHDers so that they will stick with a specific vocational path. Okay, I'm still Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. My website is terrygingrassphd.com. You can sign up for my newsletter list. You can sign up to be on my list in general. You can sign up for an intake interview if you're looking at needing some coaching. I do a lot of that, and it's just a chitty chat, and it doesn't cost anything. So if you feel like you need some extra help, sign up. You can go to my website, you sign up on Calendly, and we talk for a half hour or so. Okay, and we will see you next time. I'm going to continue on with these the different vocational categories, and in the meantime, let's remember we're trying to make the world safer for ADHDers, and they really deserve that. Okay, we'll catch you next time.